Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach.
Hey guys, welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. Today it's Shelby and me, and it is we're recording this a few days before Thanksgiving, and when we sat down to cultivate this episode, in true Laura and Shelby fashion, we made it all up right after an app call and right after some messages we got from you guys. This is all based on what we're hearing in our application calls, what we're getting in our DMs. This is so relevant and big, and we're going to dive deep into this. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those episodes everyone refers to because it's just that visceral for the beginning part of the entrepreneurial journey. But it's going to be, today's called What If You Don't Succeed, which is really a version of a fear of failure. And before we dive into that, I want to remind you to come to our holistic goal setting workshop. It is December 15th. At 11 a.m., Shelby is hosting this. This is like your third or fourth year in a row. We expect probably close to 300 people there. So register now because our Zoom only holds 300 and we're not going to upgrade.
Yeah, recordings will be available, but the idea of 300 people on a Zoom call kind of makes my stomach go, ugh, like in the best way possible. So come live. It's free. We would love to have you.
All right. So Shelby had some messages this morning that we pulled from. I just got off an app call with someone who's joining our mentorship. I've had 2 calls with her, and we talked about what had shifted for her and what had shifted for her and her husband. It was so beautiful. But the fear of, the base of it and the real foundation of why it took her so long to commit was just what if, like she said, what if I'm not able to reach my goals? What if I try and it doesn't happen for me? Like what then?
Yeah. It's like one of the biggest and scariest questions that we can sit with, right? Because, Laura and I could sit here and pep talk you all day long. You're right at the edge of the cliff. We put your parachute on, and then like we slingshot you off the edge. But then like, what if it doesn't work? What if life happens in a really unfortunately epic way and like you can't dedicate the time or like whatever the thing may be? But what happens if it doesn't work out the way that you thought? And I think that that's a really important piece to address of like, it never works out the way that we think it's going to work out. Ever. For anything. So this isn't different, right? Having a realistic management of expectations here. But I think like, let's like sink into the discomfort here of what if it doesn't work? What if genuinely you try your hardest and it doesn't? Then what, right? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean about us? What does that mean about nurse coaching? What does that mean about who I am as a person? Like, there's a lot of space to assign a lot of meaning in the answer to this question.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like for some of you, your first experience with that, whatever that is, a lot of you, like me and like Shelby, at some point in our adult life or early adult life, we were roped into trying to sell something in a direct sales company or because a friend introduced us to something. So our first entrepreneurial experience was some crazy MLM or product or thing that we sold that didn't work out. And I don't know about you guys. My first one was I sold prepaid legal when I was 23 and like partying every weekend. Like I probably wasn't sober at all, even trying to run that business. And I quit my job and went all in on it. So actually this is definitely, I'm seeing some parallels here with like the way Laura operates in the world. And I was rose-colored glasses, just the peak of Mount Stupid, went out into the world, had a little bit of success, and then it got really hard, and I quit. And the way that I felt was so terrible. And the way that I felt was so terrible because I was emotionally completely inept at the point. I was in the throes of addiction, or getting very close to the throes of addiction. I was a very young adult, 21, 22. My parents weren't super present in my life, so I felt pretty alone. And I was probably going through some version of a breakup with some boyfriend at the time. But I equated how bad I felt to my failure in this business. And when I started my nurse coaching business, there was echoes of that came up that were so real, that were, because I never wanted to feel like that again. And my ego was just trying so hard to protect me. And I'm wondering how much of that is echoing in our community as well.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I think that this leads us into one of my most favorite topics in the world, which is like your subconscious programming, right? So whenever you are feeling this sense of fear, it's usually because your brain, your subconscious brain, is like scanning your memory from a previous experience. And this is a really prime example of that, of like, I've tried something like this before. I was really excited about being a business owner and having all of this freedom, and then it epically blew up or fizzled out or wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So then your brain kind of like pulls from that catalog of memories and just rushes you with all of those emotions, the chemicals in your brain. It's almost like you're reliving the experience completely. And
totally,
then you get super freaked out about starting this nurse coaching thing. And I like just have a lot of empathy for that, because you and I have both been there. Like, I have a brief skirting with an MLM in my early 20s. I actually have a lot to be grateful for that MLM, because like it gave me the bug for freedom. Like, I didn't know it was a part of my awakening journey. But at the end of the day, it was completely out of alignment for what I actually wanted to do in the world. So it was a stepping stone for me. And I think because I chose to frame it like that early in the beginning, of like, I have experience selling, like I have experience connecting with people. I took out all of the shit that didn't resonate, and I just kept the skills that I needed and built upon those skills for my nurse coaching practice, which was actually really helpful in the beginning too, for me.
Yeah, I do that a lot on app calls, is when people bring that up, because I know what they're actually saying is, that really hurt and that felt really bad, and this feels kind of like that, and what if this is just like that? What will my husband say? What will my friends say? Like, when am I going to learn? Maybe I'm just crazy. And I always say, well, I've had 2 failed MLMs, and then a semi-successful house cleaning business. All those things are awesome skill building things we can build upon. Like, we can take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And that comes with like that deep intentionality and awareness that our subconscious is going to constantly trying to keep us safe. And that everybody that we've ever seen successful has felt this at some level and chosen to interact with the fear differently, right? So, because you only have 2 paths forward. Either the fear keeps you from ever trying, and that's your story. You're on your deathbed. You're like, well, at least I tried once. It didn't work. I'm so glad I never tried anything else again, and I stayed safe my whole life. Or it's like, well, it's going to be a hell of a journey. Might as well try. Might as well jump both feet in and just see what God has in store for me, or the universe has in store for me. So there's an element of like choosing your own adventure here, and how you perceive the risk and play with this.
Yeah. Totally. I also think something that just popped in my brain while you were saying that was your relationship, kind of like with trying new things in general, right? So I think that if you grow up in an environment with supportive parents that just encourage you to try, to begin, even if you fail, even if it's messy. I'm thinking of my parents, like they always encouraged me to try, even if I sucked at it. Like, it kind of didn't matter. The outcome didn't matter. What they fostered within me was the ability to try, the courage to try, even if I was scared, even if I was unsure, even if all of these things. And so if you did not have that dynamic growing up or have a supportive person in your corner, like, what an invitation for healing here, to have a coach in your
Yeah.
corner, to have a community in your corner, to give you another experience to kind of like weigh out and even out the scales in your brain. And to, like, I mean, do some inner child work too, to take it to the next level. But this is why we kind of beat the horse here of that coaching can be a healing modality, that your first year of entrepreneurship is going to come with a lot of invitations to go inward, and this is one of them.
Yeah, totally. And I would say, I mean, in general, you know, when I'm hearing your story about your parents being supportive, and I think about my parents, and um, in a lot of ways, I had that too. So I'm like really grateful for that. I did not have it in middle school or high school. They had their own stuff going on. So I had early childhood that, but not like in the formative years. There was just a sense of abandonment there. And so many of our clients are saying, well, I had a shitty childhood, right? Like I had an alcoholic parent, or my parents separated, or whatever. There's so many stories out there, origin stories. And what's interesting is as I have studied successful entrepreneurs, um, more of them come from difficult childhoods than picture perfect ones. So we can even have a story about like our childhood being a barrier to this being successful. But in actual data, it's like actually the more challenging your childhood is, the more, the bigger your hero's journey, and the better the story is.
Totally.
Because our origin's just our origin, but we get to play with it and make it
Yeah.
what we want.
And yeah, the empowerment really lies of like, okay, you've been dealt a set of cards, and now what are we going to do with them, right? Like there's a phrase I've seen floating around lately of like the post-traumatic hope, which comes on the other side of all of the healing, and that doesn't get a lot of light, right? I think that there's a lot of light being put on, this is what trauma can look like, feel like, which is all important. But then also too, like, what's the payoff here? Like the post-traumatic hope, that payoff is huge. Like your reality is completely different afterwards. And like Cindy had mentioned on our previous team podcast, that like everything is all made up anyways. The rules are all made up. So if you can be like healing and have an opportunity to create something that feels really good and really authentic, like we're putting all of the right things in the pot for something really epic to happen within like the next 3 years, which is like so exciting. The potential is so big. So big.
Yeah. You just mentioned 3 years, and as you know, our community freaks out when we give time horizons for success. And so we are going to speak about time fluidly in a very empowering way. And if the lens that you receive this through makes you feel hopeless, then we just have a little bit more mindset work to do. But I think you and I very early on knew we were in this for the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you agree, Shelby? Like,
yeah,
there was no alternative path. Like this was it because it had to be.
Totally. I agree. I very distinctly remember of like, I was driving, one of my friends came to visit me when we were living in New York, and I was driving her back to the airport, and I had just quit my job, and she's also a nurse, and she was like, so this is it? This is the thing? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, this feels really exciting. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, how long are you going to try? Like, how long are you going to give it a go? And I was like, I really think I'm just going to give it a go for however long it takes. Like, it's either this or nothing for me. And that mindset really works.
Oh yeah, it's I jumped already. So they're like, "Well, how long are you going to, try to stay alive as you're falling?" And it's like, "Well, I mean, hopefully forever, because I already jumped. Like, it's already happened. We're not contemplating it. I did it.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think that mindset's great. But there's this other thing that Peter had said to me, and he's like, the cool thing about nursing is, and at the time he had no kids. I had kids, so this really wasn't a reality for me. But he had said something along the lines of, like, you can just give it a go, and then if you need a little bit of capital, you can just go pick up a travel job and make 40 grand. Right? And the reality of it is that my family was never going to go hungry, because I could go work at the sniff in town. Like, I try to think of, like, the worst job that I could think of that I would have to do. But, like, I could physically do it, and I had a license to do it, and I knew I could get that job. I could get a job within 2 or 3 weeks of something. So there was zero risk of me being homeless or hungry.
Totally. Yep. And I think that that's important. It's important to remember. And I know that some of our folks listening right now, like I just had an app call a couple of weeks ago with someone that was like, I can't pay my mortgage, and she didn't have a job. So I was like, okay, the goal is different right now. The goal is be able to pay your bills, and then let's dream, right? Like, it's so challenging to do both of those at the exact same time and get your business off the ground. So I think that if your reality is like, I'm not going hungry, I can get a travel job in 3 days. I still have recruiters texting my phone 5 years later. Like, the reality, the game that we're playing is that there is so much opportunity, particularly with nurses. Like, you can be out of the game. I could be out of the game bedside for 5 years, and I could walk into the hospital down the street and be like, I can work nights. I can work mid-shift in the ER. I can be a tech, like whatever you need, if it ever came to that. And I remember feeling such comfort in that knowing for like the first 6 months in my business. And then it slowly started to shift into like a threat almost of like, dude, go do the scary thing, the uncomfortable thing, go do the Facebook Live, because you got to put all your chips on the table, or you're going to have to go work mid-shift in the ER again. Right. Like,
Right.
So it's, your biggest asset. And I also think it could be really big fuel in the tank to do uncomfortable stuff in the first few years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, I just heard this. This is off topic, as we often go when we are doing podcasts together, because this is what Shelby and I do all day long. Like, when we are in person, we talk like this back and forth for hours about all coach stuff. And I saw this video the other day, and this woman, there's a study, and I should find it, about entrepreneurs who quit their job and went all in, and entrepreneurs that had a part-time job. And that entrepreneurs who had a part-time job made 33% more than entrepreneurs that quit their job.
Really?
And and what she thinks it was not, it was just the like nervous system management. She said, because she went all in, you and I went all in. But if you go all in, but you're having actual, like, really money, like huge money scarcity, it's just too much pressure. And we can't build under pressure every moment of every day in survival mode. That's what she equated it to. And so when I'm on an app call and somebody has a part-time job and they're really, really, really afraid that this isn't going to work, I often say, here, this is the first big jump. The first big jump is you deciding to go all in, joining our mentorship, which isn't cheap. I mean, just that, you're already like saying to the universe, like, I'm going for this, right? It's huge. That's the first big step. I was like, and then the next scary thing we're going to do is when you run out of time and you have to quit your part-time job, and we'll support you through that. And I don't know when that's going to be. It will happen. We'll know. We'll feel it approaching. This is what we do. We've helped hundreds of nurses quit their part-time jobs. And then that'll be the next big leap. And I think she said something like, well, what if I quit my part-time job and then I stop getting clients? And I was like, well, that's going to happen. It happens to everybody. And then we'll manage that too. Right? It's this constant management of this perceived huge risk that we're just not used to tolerating. But over time, it's not a big risk anymore because our mind immediately goes to, well, I've already created, 15 paid clients. I know how to do that. I'm never going to go hungry because I know how to create paid clients, instead of, I'm never going to go hungry because I can go get a job at the Sniff.
Yeah.
That's a really fun moment.
Yes.
By the way, where you realize that you're never going to go hungry because you can stop coaching.
Yeah. And also too, I think that it's like in the beginning when nurse coaching feels so foreign, and like the coaching stuff like may come intuitively for you, but all of the other stuff is like really overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's so much to figure out, right? Like there's so much to figure out on how to start your business, how to make it legal, how to get the contract going, how do I accept payment, when do I pay taxes, like all of this shit that you kind of have to like sift through in the beginning. And then as you figure that out, your confidence and your ability to figure things out goes up, right? So like when you are a nurse in a hospital, you are, oh God, I feel like there's always, if you don't know the answer, you can find a person who has the answer, right? Somebody on your unit knows the answer, to where when you're an entrepreneur, you become your own resource, right? If you don't know the answer, it's you who has to figure it all out. And I don't share that to be ultra intimidating, but there's this like pump up internally that happens of like every time you figure something out, every time you fix a tech thing that you didn't know how to fix, every time you go live on Facebook or Instagram, every time you host a group workshop, you are building confidence with every single step, and that adds up over time, so that when you go to quit your part-time job, it's not going to feel like it does today, right? You're going to have data, you're going to have circumstances that you have proven to yourself that you can figure it out. And if you ever run out, I'm using air quotes, of clients, you also will know the skills on how to figure that out too. You will know what to do next, and you'll have people in your corner if you join our programs that will be able to give you new ideas if you're genuinely out of them, which is highly unlikely. So I just want to say that like whenever you go through the next big leap, you will be different, the circumstances will be different, and your history will be different too.
Yeah. Right. Because how you and I operate today, Shelby, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 2020, schools all shut down. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just open a school on my property. And it wasn't like a big deal. Like I just like, we'll just find a yurt and then we'll figure out how to build the yurt, and then we'll find a teacher and we'll figure out how to pay the teacher, and we'll figure out how to run a school, and we just did. And that's the way that things happen now. Like things come up in life and there's a problem that needs to be solved. I'm like, well, that's easy because I trust my ability to solve problems, and I trust my ability to find answers. And then your brain explodes and you're like, oh, it is like they told us when we were little. We can be anything when we want when we grow up.
When do you...
They didn't lie. It was
when
true.
do you think that like shifted for you? Because I kind of want to drive home the point that likely wasn't the case your whole life.
Takes time. Oh, no. I mean, coaching in and of itself, we're not selling tires here. Like we're coaches. So everything that we learn about our thoughts creating our reality, about upper limits, about ourselves, like that's the transformative piece. It's the coaching part. I mean, I've had a coach for 5 years, like many coaches. So any perceived limits I've had on myself have been consistently questioned by somebody that I look up to over and over and over again. And so then my own self-concept just shifted to that of what was being reflected back to me from my coach, which is like, of course you can open a school. Of course you can have a $2 million company. Of course you can buy a farm. It's whatever the fuck you want, or excuse my F. Like whatever you want. You want to speak on, of course you can speak on stage. You want to write a book? Of course you can write a book. And so I think it's just from being coached for so long, is what I think. People will say it's because you had success and then that built confidence. I think that is helpful. It's a helpful feedback loop, but the beginning of that feedback loop started with being coached.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there is something so awesome that happens whenever you say your big audacious dream out loud, and then your coach just like doesn't even flinch, and they're like, absolutely. You know, like with 100%, because that's the reality and the playing field that we all exist on, right? To where like I genuinely believe that anything that you want is possible. Genuinely. I absolutely 100% believe it 100% of the time. 100%.
I know,
Yeah.
me too.
And
I love hanging around people. I love hanging around with coaches too, because you get a bunch of us in a room. Watch out. Watch out.
Yeah.
Because you mess around with us long enough, you'll start believing anything's possible too. It's such a different way of living compared to my high school friends group, you know, like, or just different friends groups, or just coworkers. Like, that's just not the kind of elevated conversations that you're used to having. So your concept of reality shifts. Your relationship with reality shifts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love our mentorship.
Every time I leave the bubble and like talk about my dreams with like not nurse coaches, and then they like sprinkle their doubt on me, I'm like, wow, I have no tolerance for this. Like, what do you like? I have none. I remember I'm getting a flashback memory of getting my pre-op blood work done before my heart surgery. And I'm usually an easy stick. This particular day I was not. So I'm also at a pediatric hospital, and ped blood draws and adult blood draws, they don't like crossover, I guess, very well. And it's like the third nurse, and she's old, and I don't mean to be a judgmental asshole, but she's like been a nurse for a long time, and she's grumpy AF that particular day. And she comes in and she's like, you know, got the tourniquet on. She's doing her thing. She's like, so I hear you're a nurse coach. What's that? And I like give her the spiel of like, oh, it's holistic care. It's preventative care. I give her like my generic answer. And she goes, so what doctor do you work for? And I was like, I don't work for any doctor. I work for myself. And she's like, well, do you have like an office? And I was like, no, I work from home from my laptop through video chat. And she's like, who on earth would ever pay for that? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I've generated about $500,000 in business since I opened my practice 2 years ago. So a lot of people pay for it. And she just like looked at me, finished drawing my blood, and then just left, like just pieced out. That was the end of the conversation. And I was like, there's nothing I could have said to her in that moment that would have like gotten her to drink the Kool-Aid or be on my level or be excited about nurse coaching, right? So I think that this all to be said, if you're listening to this, like contemplating these questions, you are special, you are different. Like, not everybody has the capacity or that it's the right time for them to like be entertaining what your hopes and dreams are, right? Like, this is your lighthouse. Come be a lighthouse. We got extra light bulbs.
Yeah. And I'm going to give my best sage advice that I can about after you do leap and you go for it. And many of you listening to this are at this stage because we talk to you every week. But so you did go for it. You launched your business. You did your coming out post. You are just in the beginning. You're in the first 6 to 8 months. And your friends and family go, hey, Laura, hey, Shelby, how's business? How's it going? And in your mind, you go, oh my God, if they knew how hard it was, like I haven't made any money this month. I had, like wherever you are, don't share that. And it's not to, you just heard Shelby say like, people are going to sprinkle their doubt all over you. You got to protect yourself, and you can talk about all your doubts with your coach and in your community that understands how to work with doubt. But out in the wild, in the real world, this is the answer I'd love you to give.
In the wild.
Because in the wild, right, in the real world, out there in nature, you have to say, my business is going so great. I've been so excited. Because you're not lying, and you are excited. And you don't have to say, oh my gosh, it's been horrible. Nobody's buying coaching. Oh my gosh, it's horrible. I think I made a mistake. Oh my gosh. Like whatever your flavor of doubt is that week that you're inevitably going through, protect yourself with that kind of an answer. And then come share it in your group or come share it in our Facebook group. but you want to be careful who you let into your own fear, because a large percentage of the world cannot understand what you're doing.
Totally.
Just can't. And this is husbands, wives, this is parents, this is siblings, this is friends, this is coworkers. Very well-meaning, loving people have big salt shakers of doubt that it'll hold you back in the beginning.
100%. And I kind of want to offer here too of, can you also have realistic expectations for your practice as well, right? Of you really are going to get to learn to fall in love with the destination versus, and like the pursuit and the creativity rather than the destination. Because I promise you, once you hit your first 10K week or your first 100K month, you're still going to get there and be like, fuck, what's next? You know, like the destination is not actually what you're craving. It's, yeah, they move and you are going to get to learn to embrace the ride, and that's the fun part. That's the enjoyable part. That's what's going to keep you coming back. And I think that for those of you who are wrestling with like, what if this doesn't work, all the things, like, can we just take the pressure off, right? The first 3, 5, 7 years, you're in the startup phase of your business. Like, genuinely, you're in the startup phase of your business. Like, if there was a big tech company coming out with a cool new doobly-doo, whatever, like, you know, they're not a doobly-doo, you know, they're not worried. They're not worried about like making a profit in the first 3 years, right? They're just,
right.
They just want to stay alive enough to keep going, to get to the next version, to get investors, to, you know, like there's this whole mindset of being in the startup phase. And man, it's the stretchiest part. You'll eventually like land to where you're in the more predictable phase, but that's years. It's years. Yeah.
Let me give you some slippery thoughts that I know a lot of you have. Well, I know Lauren Shelby said that I shouldn't make any unrealistic goals, but I'm going to be quitting my job in 90 days, or I'm going to replace my income in 6 months, or I'm quitting my job in 6 months and I'm going to have my first 10K month. Because then the whole focus is like, how can you get people to pay you money? And you can't learn to start a service-based business if your overwhelming thoughts are, how can I get people to give me money? Because people give you money accidentally over time because you serve your community so deeply and so thoroughly and from such a place of love, to be honest. It's like your being in the world gets rewarded financially, and we just can't focus on that. I think that's the difference between our business and a lot of other businesses in the way that our method especially is like, if you serve the world well and you serve to the best of your ability and you fall in love with serving the world, you are going to make a shit ton of money doing it as a result. We just don't know when.
Yeah.
We don't know when.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I know that it's easy to get spooked over timelines of things, right? But this is why I find it so helpful of like, okay, can we make it an actual realistic timeline to where like, can you give this 18 months? Bare minimum 18 months. Full throttle, lots of effort. You're allowed to take breaks along the way, but like, can you give it 18 months of intentional time and effort and energy? And you're going to have financial success during that time. 100%. I know it. But also rewinding a little bit, falling in love with the pursuit, falling in love, like the feeling that you're chasing, the feeling of safety, security, predictability, that's not going to be there in the first 18 months. It's just not. And it does come, but I don't know, actually, now that I'm saying that out loud, I think it actually comes with your ability to hold more of the unknown rather than actually feeling secure in your business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Shelby, you and me, we have lots of clients on payment plans. If nothing happened in our business, we'd probably be okay for 6 months. And that doesn't make me feel safe. Right? Like it's not like we've created a business where if the whole world fell apart, my life wouldn't shift at all for years. Like no
Mhm.
businesses are ran that way, and no jobs are that way either. Life isn't that way. So I think people always like, well, I just want, what is it? What is the word they always say? I want not safety, not predictability,
Mhm.
stability. I want stability. I want stability. No, you don't. Human beings actually don't want stability.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't. It's not what it's what we think we want. It's just, it's not actually what we want. We want to be full in alignment in our purpose. We want to be giving the best that we can in every area of our life. We want to be loving as many people in as many ways as possible. That's actually what the human condition is meant to desire. And there's nothing wrong with going back on your heels and wanting safety and security, but that's not where you want to
Right.
live.
Yeah.
I mean, very few people.
I remember the story that one of our mentors shared with us of whenever because we were having this discussion of like, how much money do we keep in the bank? Because Laura and I both know that like we can do a lot more cool stuff with money when it's not just sitting in a bank account, right? So like, how much do we keep there? How
Right.
much payroll do we have just like on standby? And then like, what do we do with this other money? How do we circulate it? How do we keep it moving? How do we invest in our business? And this is a conversation we were having earlier this year. And our mentor, bless him, won't give me a black and white answer to save my life. But he said that this number fluxes and fluctuates over time, right? So he gave the example of when his first son was born, he's like, I had $1 million in cash in my bank account because I was freaked out. I was scared. I was going through a transition. I didn't know if I was ever going to work or want to work another day in my life. And then my son was born, and then I got used to it. And then like 8 weeks later, that number changed, right? I put that money back out into the world. I reinvested. I did all the things that I was doing before. And I think that actually gave me a little bit of like breathing room of like, this actually isn't a problem to solve. Like it's not a spreadsheet for me, right? To where like, if one of us got sick or I had another baby or I don't know, whatever. We had a pre-planned big moment in life. Maybe you and I would pad the business a little bit more for the long term to stretch it.
Yeah.
But right now, when we have the ability to like expand and grow, that doesn't like we have the space to run.
What's interesting when you ask people are like, I just want to be financially secure. It's like, perfect. That's awesome. I do too. What number has to be in the bank for you to feel financially secure? And then everybody will say a different number. And then once you really live into that number, you realize it's all bullshit. Like there is no number, because that's you're assigning a feeling that you want to have about your control in the world to a number. So like Cindy said, it's all made up. And I think that what Shelby and I are saying around this topic of like this fear of not being able to reach your goals, I think that what happens over time is that you realize that there is no goal that you can't reach as long as you're on the path. And then the goal is just to be on the path, like some version of the path. And that path will look different at different stages. It'll be steep at some stages. It'll be flat at some stages. And some stages, thank God, it's downhill. But you're opting for a life on the path, right? Like this is, you're deciding to walk that path, whatever that path is. And I mean, me and you will have moments of total financial security. You were laughing at me today because I was like, I'm going to buy an office this week. I need a she shed. I got to get out of this room. It's just not big enough. And yet a month from now, we could both be going through our own fears or a wave of fear around some uncertainty, some financial uncertainty, or some decision that we have to make, or right, we're still on the path, and there's still roots sticking up that we trip on sometimes. Deep moments with Laura and Shelby.
I feel like that's a great place to end, if I'm being honest. I mean,
it was like a lot of wisdom bombs thrown at this, right? Like it was a free flow conversation.
My most favorite kind. And I know we say this all the time, team, but like, just if you don't quit, you don't lose.
Right.
And that's it.
There's only two types of nurse coaches. Ones that don't quit and have success, and ones that quit before they have success. Period. And our job here at the Successful Nurse Coaches is to keep you from quitting.
Yep.
That's our number one big boogeyman. People talk about like, I try to use like medical terms for this. Like, what's the biggest comorbidity for a business that's never born? Quitting before it's born, right? Like, and so our programs are literally designed to snuff out that, like, get rid of that comorbidity that your first year, to remove that as an option in the first 12 months, which are the most tender and uncertain and healing, to be honest.
Absolutely. Well, this is a great segue into another plug of like, if you're here at this part of the episode, you're 40 minutes deep and you're like, okay, Lauren Shelby, I'm here. I'm great. I'm on the path, but like, I don't even know what the path is. Come to the goal setting workshop on the 15th and we're going to spend some time like putting things on your path, being super intentional, tapping in to like the deeper layers, not just simply SMART goals, if I'm being honest. Every year I get messages from people who say, I came to the goal setting workshop last year. I wrote down some crazy things on that piece of paper and I looked at it for the first time since March and 90% of them are true. And so it's just a really cool self-exploration so that then you can take this work into your coaching clients as well. But come to the Facebook group, and you can find the event page in there and register for the Zoom link and all the things. But thanks for spending your morning with us. This was a fun one.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.